Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Bolt Action Reloading. In this week's episode, we're going to be going over my Bald Eagle front shooting rest. Stick around. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here and you'd like to see how I and the rest of the community here make our group smaller, start now by subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon. That way you get notified when I post next week's video and you won't miss anything. For this week's video, we'll be going over our Bald Eagle shooting rest. This is the front shooting rest I've used in several of my videos. This exact model is not actually available any longer, but there are certainly some similar models out there, so I thought I'd walk you guys through it in case you're interested. I will put Amazon affiliate links in the description box below to where you can get them on Amazon. Technically, they're also distributed through Grizzly, but the only seller on Amazon for these is going to be Grizzly. So depending on what you're looking for, you should be able to find these down in there. Now, this particular model is a BE1004. This particular model has been discontinued, but there are several others. There's essentially two different models of this, a triangle, which this one is, or a slingshot model. Also two different configurations, one in aluminum, one in cast iron. This one particular is aluminum. So what we discuss today in my experience is going to be based on my experience with this triangle aluminum mount. However, I don't think there's going to be any disadvantage to the slingshot model. It actually might be a slightly smaller package. But as far as worrying about the need for the heft of the cast iron, I haven't found it. The spike legs in the bottom of this model have lent themselves to being able to not move on the rest on anything I've used it with so far. It's not exactly light in aluminum, and I'm sure it's not any lighter in cast iron. One thing you will notice with this is it has the windage adjustment. Though this is an interesting feature, I don't want you guys to get the impression that you're going to be able to perfectly dial this unit in. I'm not going to go over in this video, but there's actually ways to modify this, and it's not a horrible idea, assuming you're a right-handed shooter, to reverse this plate, put a screw with a handle on this side instead of this cable. One of the biggest downsides to this rest is this adjuster. Dialing that in is a little bit finicky, and it just doesn't seem to be perfect. But for the cost of this rest, I don't want you to think it's a huge negative. I don't believe you're going to find any other rest in this price range that has that adjustment on it that's going to be quite as nice as this is. Or at least when I was looking, I certainly didn't find it. Anybody who's thinking this is going to be a replacement for a Seb front shooting rest, no. They're wildly different. Back when I caught this on sale, it was somewhere around $154. It was on some type of a discount at that point in time. This particular model has been discontinued. You can see on the table here the bag that's in it, and there's two other bags. When you order this rest, it does not actually come with a shooting bag on it. Essentially, you need to order one of these three shooting bags, or you could certainly order all three. In no particular order here, we'll just start here on the right. This BE1123 is a 2 1/4 inch front bag. If you're just going to try and rest your rifle in it, for most of your rifles, if you don't have a super wide stock on your rifle. Hopefully you can see in contrast to the BE1122, this is a 3 inch front bag. And if you were going to try and use something like a 4-inch bench rest adapter that's 3 inches, that's going to give you the appropriate dimension to ride something like that in there. Or if you happen to have a bench rest rifle that's very wide on the front stock, that might be the bag you want. I think most of your standard rifles are going to be in this BE1123 area. The other one you can see here is the BE1124. They call it just a radius front bag. Hopefully you can get a reasonable idea from the picture on here. I had the impression that maybe this was going to be a little bit more narrow at the top. I don't think it was what I expected it to be. I really think this was a little bit narrower at the top. That would have been more ideal, at least for my applications. I don't think it's held some of the rifles I've shot in it quite as tightly as I've wanted to. In future cases where if I wasn't using my 4-end adapter, I might be switching back to the BE123 bag. But you don't have to use these bags with this particular rest. It's possible they will fit other rests, but they don't list them. I did find a note on Amazon that somebody said it fit on some of the standard Caldwell rests. I'm not going to promise you that, but I did read that on Amazon. Draw your own conclusions. I can tell you that the center to center dimension on the holes is about exactly 2 inches. Those are the bag options that you can get with it. I'm not sure if there's any of the other protector bags that you can get aftermarket for it. For now, this is the Bald Eagle options that you have to go with it. And I think that we're going to change view here real quick and we'll go over all the details of the rest. Guys, let's just kind of go through my usual setup of what I would do at the range. Try and set this up as straight on to the target as you possibly can. For what it's worth, I usually take my phone with its level application on there, set these up as much as possible. You're going to have to loosen the lock nuts. You dial the legs down. I try to get this as level as possible. I'm not going to hopefully be, when I make any adjustments to it, I'm only going to be going exactly up and down. And so I'm going to take whatever unlevelness my bench has in it and hopefully dial that out with my legs. It's not probably perfect, but I think it's pretty darn close. And for something I always have with me, if you had a small level with you, I'm really not sure you'd be able to dial it in any better, but you got to do what you decide is right for you. Depending on what rifle and what rear rest I'm using, very frequently I'm using this rear bag, and depending on what rifle and the distance this is might depend on exactly what the height of my front rest is. After this is dialed in, they claim that there's 3/4 inch of adjustment in these legs, feet, that you can rise it up. It can take something that's pretty unlevel and make it level if that's what you're interested in. I like to take those once I've got the legs down, take those lock nuts and lock them right in, and they stay real well. I've had this on carpeted benches. I've had it on just straight wood built benches, and I really haven't had it move. I've really never had a problem with this thing shifting at all. Previously, I was using this Caldwell rest that didn't have any spiked feet on it at all. I realized that there is a model that doesn't. This would move all over the place depending on what surface that I had it on. It certainly was better than nothing, but something that had these spiked feet on it really was what it needed to be able to stay in place. And like I said, this is aluminum, so it's the lighter model from the cast iron. It's going to make it easier to haul around. I've shot everything from my 338 Lapua, 6mm Creedmoor, 30-06, a whole bunch of different rifles off this, and I've never had a problem with it moving or adjusting or losing level while shooting any of those rifles. I can't say that I really wished I would have had a heavier rest, because I think this has worked for us just fine. When you're trying to set the height on there are two actual adjustments, a fine and a kind of a gross and a fine. And so for the gross adjustment, you kind of unlock this, use the knob on the other side here to roughly go up and down. And as soon as you've got it where you want it, lock it in with your side handle here. And then you have the fine adjustment where you unlock it and you can move it with your thumb. It does shift a little bit. Hopefully the camera can pick that up. When you tighten it down, you can see that shift just a little bit. It's a little bit annoying at first. I have gotten used to it. The wind adjustment is similar to that as far as you kind of move it a little bit. It kind of moves in spurts. If you can kind of see the cable pick up. So that hasn't actually moved it much at all. And then it gives way and turns. I alluded to this before. There is a lock nut underneath here. You can actually reverse this assembly. Several people have actually removed the windage adjustment, reversed this assembly for a right-handed shooter, and installed a hand dial on this side, so you can just finely dial your windage on this side. You can probably find that in there if you want. I'm not going to cover that today, and I might end up doing that at some point in time. It's not perfect, but I do think having the windage adjustment is a benefit, but I do think it's a option you could live without if the extra $25 is kind of out of your budget. But it's kind of a nice addition. I'm certainly not going to complain about it, and I'm glad that I have it. Like I'm sure I've said 3 times already in this review, this is not a Seb. There's no way that this is going to be as good as one of those. But for $154, I couldn't complain. I think similar model right now in cast iron is like $170. We'll kind of move around to the front unit. You can kind of see we have the stop on here. This is really nothing more than a Teflon rod. You can see that the screw kind of goes up the center. There's a flat on the bottom of this rod. If you're not familiar, this is kind of to make a consistent stop so you're moving your rifle up to the same point every single time. Hopefully to minimize the adjustment of your elevation, or at least eliminate some of that uncertainty a little bit. This is a significant amount above the bottom of your bag. So depending on, your stock size, this can be a little bit annoying. And some of my other rifles, like an aluminum handguard for an AR, what I've ended up doing is kind of tilting this off center and then locking in that way. If you continue to screw that in, it will straighten it up. But I've been able to get it tight enough and being able to hit the handguard in that and avoid the barrel. You want to make sure this doesn't touch your barrel and affect your groups in that way. But overall, you can take it off if it annoys you. I mean, if you really wanted to, I'm sure you could cut it off, but it's probably something you could hand make if you really wanted to. But like I said, I've just kind of gotten around what I needed to by turning it to the side and locking it in and adjusting it to my application. It's not a huge deal to change this bag. It does take a little bit of time. You take these 4 screws out, even though the bag only has 2 in it that go through it. It mounts it very solid, so you don't have your bag walking around like I have had in my Caldwell. My Caldwell bag kind of moves around a lot. This was a huge upgrade compared to that unit. This isn't a Seb. This is not the most expensive unit you can get. It's far from that. But as far as a front rest, I don't want to call it basic because it's got a lot of features. I do think this is going to help make our groups more consistent. I actually have a new rear bag setup coming. Hopefully it'll get here soon. I'll probably review it on the channel. And when you guys see the next range footage, hopefully if it's here by then, you'll see it in action. If you guys are interested in any of these products, I will have those links below. On Grizzly's website, they do list some of these as closeout. However, they were long for sale after I purchased this, though this model is not available any longer. I don't know if they're going to be discontinued anytime soon. Some of the original list price were well over $300. Like I said, I paid $154 for this a year ago, basically. Anyway, if you have any questions about it, I'll try and answer those in the comment section below. Even if you're not looking for a new front rest, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you like the content we do here on the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you get notified when I post next week's video. I hope to see you back next week, and until then, stay safe in small groups.